Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome, come on in.
They lure in members with discounted drinks and embark on a booze-fuelled orgy of subsidised drunkenness that inevitably leads to behaviour that shames them all. I'm talking about Student Union Freshers' Week, ruddy-cheeked and wide-eyed, free at last from the shackles of home life. Newly enrolled students set about drinking the Union bar dry, and it's all got to stop, say those tasked with saving us from ourselves. And they have an uphill task. At Durham University, for instance, they have something called the Diced Carrot Club, which encourages its members to fill their boots till they're sick. At the other end of the country, they lure in members with discounted drinks and embark on a booze-fuelled orgy of subsidised drunkenness that inevitably leads to behaviour that shames them all. I'm talking about our members of Parliament, who get through £5 million worth of cut-price drinks and the finest food at our expense every year. Whether to have the steak or the crayfish at a table with a view is top of the agenda. Have champagne too. They're practically giving it away. To everyone except those that are paying for it. Us. Still, our MPs are amateurs compared with their European counterparts. They stand accused of criminal levels of abuse of allowances to the tune of £100 million a year. It's so bad they conducted an inquiry, which gave results that were so incendiary that the report is kept under lock and key in a secret room protected by biometric locks and security guards. Even Tom Cruise couldn't find a way into that vault. It comes to something when the powers that be imply they've done something wrong, but they won't tell us what it is, and we must trust them to put it right. If indeed there is anything to put right, which there isn't. Please disperse. Nothing to see here. It's enough to drive you to drink. That is quite shocking about the Euro MP's expenses. But first, let's do our own backyard, as it were. I had no idea. I mean, I knew that they had discount food at the Houses of Parliament, but I didn't know the extent to which they're pulling their giant wobbly bottoms up to the trough and sinking their faces in. MPs and their staff have munched their way through £5 million worth of cut-price food and drink paid for with our money. These, by the way, are, of course, the same people who are telling us to stop drinking so much. And you have to think, you watch Prime Minister's Question Times every now and again. They're all drunk, right? That's what that is. I mean, grown men baying like that, they have to be on something. It can't just be the thrill of the occasion. I mean, I know it's early in the day, but I mean, I wouldn't act like that in public, would you? Waving their papers like that, it's just silly. The public purse bankrolls parliaments, restaurants, cafes and bars so that they can serve extravagant meals and alcohol at bargain prices. The subsidy helps keep down the cost of mouth-watering dishes, including Scottish fillet steak, loin of venison, Devon crab and bottles of champagne. It means MPs who earn 60 grand and claim an average of £135,000 expenses each year can enjoy 3-course meals plus coffee for as little as £10 in their exclusive dining rooms. They can also have a glass of bubbly for £5.40, far below central London prices. Yeah, it's about a third, I'd say. And that those two first figures in that paragraph, they are shocking, isn't it? This is why they keep saying that, oh, well, you know, we need an above a rise of inflation because the job that we're doing is so very important. Yet look at the meagre scraps we have to get by on. Only £60,000 a year. You could barely keep your head above water in London on that amount, but that's not the amount that they earn. They take away 3 times that. At least. The average expenses is £135,000 a year. Now, to you and I, if we used an office at home, we wouldn't claim the entire amount and get it all back, would we? If we used, a bedroom at home as an office, at most, we could claim a tiny portion of the rent or the mortgage against tax. You wouldn't get the full amount back, but this is what they're getting. And if I said to the taxman, well, you know, I spent 400 quid here, there and everywhere, but I don't have any receipts, will you just take my word for it? Well, they'd laugh in your face. But this is the rules that they're enjoying themselves under. The subsidy that they enjoy slashes the price of refreshments in 4 formal restaurants, 6 bars, 6 self-service restaurants, 3 cafes and numerous banqueting rooms. I had no idea that it was quite that generous. 4 formal restaurants, 6 bars, 6 self-service restaurants, 3 cafes and numerous banqueting rooms. Nice work if you can get it. In total, MPs and peers receive £13,000 a day to keep down the cost of food and drink. These are people who are earning, remember, £200,000 a year. And I just will not accept that they're only earning 60 and that the 135,000 is expenses. I mean, hands up who accepts that that's the actual case, or that they're trousering 200 grand. Hands up who thinks they're getting by on 60? Hands up who thinks they're getting by on 200. Overwhelming. They really have lost our faith, haven't they?
Maybe they get 13,000 to spend because all the catering is done by motorway service people.
I don't follow the logic.
Because motorway service caterers charge a bomb just for a bar of chocolate.
Oh, but it's on the road. Extra yummy, am I right?
And also, if you go to one of the fast food places there, after a certain time, they can't throw the food out, so they have to give it away for free.
Really?
Yeah. That's also in... that's where you... Well, I don't want to generalise, but you see quite a lot of homeless people sometimes queuing outside certain fast food restaurants because at certain times of the day they can't keep the food there for much longer, so they have to give it away.
It's like at the supermarket after 6 o'clock, old age pensioners are circling around the bread counter to be first in line for the discounted bread, and you have to just elbow them out the way. There's just no way around it. Just push them to the floor, kick their strollers away, and that will that will leave the way clear for you. The details will increase outrage over the cosy lifestyles of MPs. They are already suspected of raking in tens of thousands of pounds by abusing their generous expenses. When was the point at which we lost all faith in the well, I was going to say the ruling class, but they're not even that anymore, really, are they? Some of them don't have any class at all. But the people who rule over us, at what point did we lose all respect? Because we used to be a country that doffed our... and in some respects we still do. I mean, if they're a royal of some sort, we're virtually falling to our knees. But MPs, it's as though we just can't stand them anymore. Was there a tipping point at which we thought, right, that's it, I will remove all the respect that I have previously endowed you with? MPs can also claim items such as fish tanks and iPods on their expenses and £400 worth of food shopping each month without a receipt, the head of Parliament's Finance Department admitted last week. Among the restaurants which boast silver service is the ornate Churchill Room, overlooking the Thames, which was reserved for MPs, officers and their guests. Last week the menu offered Scottish fillet steak with grilled plum tomato, mushrooms, fine French beans, hand-cut chipped potatoes, chips in other words, and a choice of 3 sauces for £25, or veal cutlets with straw potatoes. What are they? And watercress for £15. In the members' dining room, which serves MPs, ex-MPs and Commons officers, the deal's even better, with a 3-course meal plus coffee for less than £11, a quarter of what a restaurant might charge for similar fare. Matthew Elliott, Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance, said the House of Commons has the working practices of a 1970s nationalised company, with gold-plated pensions, relatives on the payroll, and subsidised canteens and bars. Well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. It's like British bloomin' Leyland. And they bent over backwards to try and get rid of that, of those practices, didn't they? While keeping them closely guarded for themselves. I'd never thought about it like that. The message seems to be, tuck in, it's on the taxpayer. Parliament's restaurants and bars cater for nearly 650 MPs, more than 1,000 peers, who don't appear to do anything at all. They certainly don't show up for debates. If you've ever seen the Parliament channel on the BBC, on the occasions that they show the Lords, when they're having a major debate in the Lords, there's the guy who's speaking, 2 people unconscious on the benches, and that's it.
The reason they look like they're asleep is because they've got speakers in the bench and they're listening in. That's actually what it was.
No, these people are prone. They're on the floor, flat out with a glass in their hand. That's not true. I mean, I know they have speakers, but they are actually asleep. They're not. I don't believe it.
No, I've been there, and it's true.
That's
Politics student, remember?
Yeah, politics student that doesn't vote, remember? You don't have a say, so shut up. 1,000 members of the permanent staff also get to tuck in, and 8,000 other pass holders, none of which would be you or me. Few of Parliament's 750,000 visitors each year dine in the restaurants, because, presumably, we're not allowed. Have you ever been in Parliament? Have you ever tucked in? No, of course not. Take one look at you and send you on your way. Naturally. But then I imagine most fine dining establishments would do just the same, right? 0845 6060 973 745. LBC Travel with Alan Joyce.
Thanks, Nick. Just had word.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm super, thanks for asking. 0845 6060 973. Hey, the Terminator thing's on TV this evening, isn't it?
Affirmative.
What time does it start?
6:18 p.m.
Oh, is it over yet? How long does it last?
2 hours and 53 minutes.
I'm quite excited. Terminator. It's the Chronicles of Sarah Connor. So I shall be wrapped on the edge of my seat, I will, hoping for explosions and car chases. Isn't it great?
The golf is also on.
The what?
The golf.
The golf. Oh, that's interesting.
Boring.
What golf?
The WGC Championships.
WGC, Women's Golf Club.
Yeah, almost. No, I was being sarcastic. It's nothing to do with women.
WGC. Wentworth Golf Club.
No, World Golf Championship.
Oh, yeah, World Golf Championship. You couldn't say that after a couple of the 19th hole, could you? Or indeed, a lunch at the Commons. I'm keen to find out if anybody who, in this vast listening audience, has been to sample the fare at the Commons. 0845 6060 973. Inquiring minds are keen to find out what it's like in there. Because the way they're describing it in this newspaper is, it's just, it's like one long, cheap party. What's it actually like? I only saw one politician in the... I think I've only ever seen one politician in the flesh. And he was steaming. It was about 3:30, and he came with a bunch of his chums who were all wearing bad suits. And they bowled through Green Park, which is their manor. Absolutely pie-eyed they were. Disgraceful. And this was before they got to the Houses of Parliament, because they'd been lunching somewhere else. They just nipped back to work for, a top-up, before they drove themselves home, probably. On the other hand, they're very upset with students. Binge-drinking students. They must stamp it out, they say, between sips. The days of new students being initiated into binge-drinking at universities may be numbered. The government is considering plans to clamp down on Freshers' Weeks, where students are encouraged to consume vast quantities of cheap alcohol. The Prime Minister and his policy team have been impressed by experts at Downing Street in a seminar, who deplored the scale of drunkenness at universities. Now, honestly, though, the Prime Minister's questions, they are all drunk, right? Because grown men don't make that sort of noise ordinarily. They just don't. I mean, they aren't stupid people. They aren't baying animals. They're just drunk. Isn't that right? Isn't that true?
Maybe they're just excited about what they're talking about.
No, they're not. That can't be it at all, because they're not really talking about anything substantive. It's all just point scoring.
That's the exciting part.
Yeah, but that's just... I mean, it kind of reduces the Parliament to a puppet show. It's Punch and Judy. It's just silly. Every time I tune in, it's kind of amusing, I suppose, but at the back of your mind, you're always thinking, well, you know what, these are the dopes that have, that are supposed to be running things. It's just embarrassing. The Prime Minister and his policy team, they're very keen to crack down on this. The alcohol-fuelled induction week for new recruits now runs to 2 or even 3 weeks at some universities, with clubs and societies competing to lure new members with free or discounted drinks and subsidised pub crawls. As I mentioned, Durham University's got the Diced Carrot Club. That is horrible. Students may well accuse ministers of hypocrisy, given the subsidised alcohol that MPs enjoy at the House of Commons bar and their own student experiences. Jackie Smith, Jack A., the Home Secretary, was famously photographed playing a drinking game known as Bunnies in her pyjamas at Oxford University. Smith once described the rules. You tap your knees, then point at another member of the group. Then they put their hands up to pretend that they have rabbit ears. Those who failed to make the bunny had to down the drink in one go.
What?
I know. As a teenager, Nick Clegg, the Liberal Democrat leader, drunkenly set fire to a greenhouse full of award-winning cacti. Anne Brown, while student rector at Edinburgh in the 1970s, this is our glorious leader, fought a proposal to cut student grants because recipients were spending too much money on alcohol. He's said to have demanded to know how much money university officials themselves were spending on drink. Wasn't Gordon Brown the very same chap that in a student rag suggested that people, when they go to parties, should put a brick in the bottle of a carrier bag to make it look as though they'd shown up with some cans? And then, when you get there, empty-handed, drink other people's booze. I think he actually wrote that. Isn't that terrible? Maybe that's where he got the name for prudence. Being tight would be another word for it. David Cameron, the Tory leader, George Osborne, the Shadow Chancellor, and Boris Johnson, the Tory candidate for London Mayor, were members of the exclusive drinking and dining society, the Bullingdon Club, infamous for its acts of drunken debauchery while at Oxford University. A contemporary of Cameron's recalled locking a fellow buller in a portable lavatory and rolling him down a hill. You shouldn't laugh. Gemma Tumulty, President of the National Union of Students, said the Cabinet are thinking more about their days at university than the reality of the situation now. The income that students make from drink... The income that student unions make from drink has declined so much that they're now they're changing bars into coffee and juice bars. Yeah, right. So the papers are, they are thin today. They're thin to the extent that every single paper that I picked up today had a picture of that ray, that fish thing with a smiling face. It looked like it had been that Doctor Who thing with the skin stretched on a frame.
Was it a stingray?
I don't know what kind of a ray it was, mate. But it looked happy. A little ray of sunshine was one of the headlines. And if every single newspaper has got the same picture of a fish in it, you know it's a slow news day. So if there's anything on your mind, then, this is the day to throw it at me. Lay it on me, baby. 0845 6060 973. Otherwise, I'm just going to do a monologue for 2.5 hours. I can do that, but it might not be on subjects that you want to talk about. There was a lot about global warming again today. You see there, and people are going, oh, no, not this again. But the pictures that were from ordinarily warm places in the world were extraordinary. Greece and China, states in America that don't normally get snow. This is one of the coldest winters in history, and they got the pictures to prove it. And this story hasn't really attracted much interest because I think it flies in the face of the perceived wisdom of global warming. I think people don't want any contrary evidence because it detracts from the message. And everything these days is about being on message. And if you start to disseminate information that the world is actually cooling down rather than warming up, then people will start to get very upset because people have a vested interest now in convincing us that global warming is a real phenomenon. that has to be tackled by spending a lot of money on things like light bulbs and solar panels and windmills and all of the rest of it. And so there's a lot of evidence now that that suggests that it's not actually warming up, it's cooling down. And as we're getting towards the news, it's a little bit too late for me to start in on this now, but I might do this as we come back. Across much of Northern Hemisphere, from Greece and Iran to China and Japan, they've been suffering the worst snowfalls in decades. Some countries have never seen snow before in living memory. People are going outside and they don't actually know what they're looking at. It's so unusual. All right, so there's that. I want to do further drunkenness and many others. I've got about 30 topics in all. This is LBC.
Anybody care what this guy thinks?
No!
Welcome back. We were just playing bunnies. Across much of the Northern Hemisphere, from Greece and Iran to China and Japan, they've been suffering their worst snowfall in decades. How much snow, approximately, would bring this country to a halt?
We're looking at 10 inches.
No, not even like 2. A light dusting would bring this country to a halt. In parts of the state of Washington in America, 200 inches has fallen in the past fortnight. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, you can't even imagine it. Similarly, freakish amounts of snow have fallen over much of the northern United States, from Ohio to the Pacific coast. And this, right now, could possibly be, I would guess, the first time you've heard about it. I think that there is a conspiracy to hush this up. Because that's an incredible amount of snow, and no one's reporting it. Everyone's reporting that, the ice caps, when they were melting, they're refreezing, by the way. Pictures of polar bears clinging to tiny ice floes, and they're just ramming it down your throat. But when evidence that the reverse is true, everyone's looking in the other direction. Don't you find that bizarre? Large parts of America have been paralysed as rail and road transport grinds to a standstill. More than 25,000 miles of power lines collapsed under the weight of snow and ice that they were never designed to cope with. Actually, this is China. They've had the worst snow for 50 years. They have a state of emergency over there. Did you know that? No. Snow's devastated thousands of square miles of farmland, threatening severe food shortages. The total cost of the disaster to the Chinese economy is more than £10 billion, which is in banking circles known as a great deal of money. Not a peep from the press over here. In Afghanistan, freezing weather and the worst snow for 30 years has killed more than 900 people. In neighbouring Tajikistan, according to aid agencies, the coldest winter for 50 years, along with soaring food prices and a massive energy crisis, threatens a humanitarian catastrophe, which you'd normally associate with the heat and drought, right? But now it's the cold and snow. In Greece and Turkey, where temperatures dropped to as low as minus 31 degrees Celsius. What? Minus 31. It never gets that cold here. Greece is where you go for the heat, right? Hundreds of villages in Greece have been cut off by blizzards and drifting snow. In Iran, following heavy snowfalls last month, its eastern desert regions, normally still hot at this time of year, have seen their first snow in living memory. In Saudi Arabia last month, people were amazed by the first snow they had ever seen. And on the Pacific coast of Japan last week, heavy falls of snow injured more than 50 people. Wow, they must have been really heavy. Dropping like bricks out the sky they were. Meanwhile, in America, similarly, abnormal snowfalls have hit more than a dozen states. One Massachusetts town reported 12-foot drifts after its heaviest snows in 30 years. In Wisconsin, the state governor declared a state of emergency as schools and airports were forced to close by up to 20 inches of snow. And this was dwarfed by blizzards, which dropped as much as, you ready, 16 foot of snow on some parts of Washington. That would cover your house. In light of such similar news from so many places around the world, it may not seem surprising that the US satellite data for January shows the extent of snow cover in the Northern Hemisphere as reaching its highest level since 1966. So this is not isolated anymore. This is the snow cover in the whole of the north of the planet. It's never been so cold in 42 years. Furthermore, it's not only in the Northern Hemisphere that records are being broken. Following last week's freak snowfalls in such southern cities as Buenos Aires and Sydney, satellite observations from the other end of the world this winter have shown that ice cover around the Antarctic at easily its greatest extent for this time of year since records began. 30% above average. There is no such thing as global warming. We're getting colder. That whole global warming thing lasted for a couple of years, and now we've been plunged into a mini ice age. They did say, by the way, and I know that this comes up every now and again, that a good long time ago, in the 70s, they were predicting an ice age. In fact, they said that that's exactly what was happening then. Can you remember that it was particularly cold then? Not really. Do you think it's particularly warm now? Not really. Is it like... I wonder if it's, if it has any parallels to the fashion industry. I mean, do people get tired of waists that were at waist level, and they think, oh, we must plunge them down to below your bottom? I mean, were people clamouring for that, or did the fashion designers just come up with it? Actually, that's a bad example, because the waist below your bottom thing, that's yo, hip-hop, American, let's all pretend that we're in jail and they've taken our belts fashion. That's what that is. If you're wandering around with your waist around your knees, then you're pretending that you're in an American jail and they've taken your belt away from you. That's what that is. Isn't that pathetic? Still, they're doing it. I was in a supermarket just the other day, minding my own affairs, and two kids were walking around with the entirety of their bottom hanging out in the fresh food section. You believe that?
Were they builders?
No, they were just, lads who thought they were being cool. But it was just laugh out loud funny. I mean, if they broke into a trot, never mind about a run, they would just fall flat on their face. That's not cool, that's just stupid. But, I think it's the job of teenagers to make old geezers irritated at the way they look. I know I did. And if we weren't annoyed with the way they present themselves, then they wouldn't be doing their job sufficiently well. That's true, isn't it? What will they come up with next? Three-piece suits, perhaps? So far, the leading advocates of global warming have remained fairly quiet about the 2008 freeze. I bet they have. They're hoping that it all blows over. Their alpine ski resorts, by the way, have seen their best conditions for many a year. If you were considering going skiing, it hasn't been a better time to do it than right now. Global warming skeptics, on the other hand, are inevitably pointing to these record snowfalls as evidence that the global temperatures are no longer rising as CO2 theory predicts. We may, they suggest, be seeing the start of a period when temperatures reverse their generally upward trend over the last 30 years, as we did in those decades before 1978, known to climate scientists as little cooling. So there it is. Proof positive of, I've really no idea. Molesey. Hadley.
Hi.
Hey, Hadley.
Favourite presenter, first.
Pardon?
You're my favourite presenter.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I don't try and make old gitties. It's like you look silly.
Right, glad to hear it.
There was a conversation topic on LBC not so long ago about taking school children to go see Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a very good idea. I went Tuesday with my dad. I got back today. And it's... Well, people may disagree with me, but it's not very visual. I know you're there, but I was a lot more impacted by the whole scale of everything that happened and was more disgusted by it through reading and watching videos than going to see some rubble. And I don't think it's... If the aim of it is to shock people into thinking, oh, this is what happened, then I think it's best kept to textbooks, because it's not that shocking, in my opinion.
Right, so it wasn't a school trip, it was,
No, I was supposed to go with my school, but they cancelled it, so I went anyway.
And so I haven't been, but I can imagine how I'd feel if I did. Were you just sort of a bit nonplussed? It's like, oh, well...
Well, not nonplussed. I was interested. It was genuinely interesting. It just wasn't at all shocking. It was a bit eerie, but it was quiet, but it wasn't in your face, this is what happened, isn't it disgusting? The only thing that really did impact me is when I went to Birkenau, the main camp, and the size of it. It was massive. You couldn't see one end to the other. And my overall point is I don't think it'll be a good use of our resources to send students there.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with that. But that isn't government policy now, is it? To send everyone to...
No, it's not, but they were talking about making it a sort of on the syllabus.
Right.
To go see it, because it is an important part of our history, because so many millions of people just effectively disappear.
Yeah. Well, part of the history is that, and I wonder if they teach this, that we knew, or the government knew that it was going on, and they could have stopped it by bombing the place, but they declined to do it.
Well, judging by the place, a lot more people have died if they'd bombed it.
So what kind of, are there a lot of people wandering around? You go in giant groups, or is it just free access?
Giant groups.
Right, okay.
With tour guides. There were a few people just on their own, but most of it was in big tour-guided groups.
Right, so you really are getting the vibe off the people that you're with. You're not sort of wandering around on your own, letting it seep in a solitary way. Okay, and so what sort of feeling did you get?
Well, it depends which bit you were in, because Auschwitz 1, which is comparatively small to Birkenau, it is possibly the most shocking, because you go into all the old bunkhouses and they've got all these different displays and things, and there's a small corridor that you walk down and then back up, and on both sides of you must be about 10,000 pairs of shoes.
Right.
To each side of you, and then there's another display case stuffed with human hair. It's disgusting, but you don't really get the feel of what happened. It comes off as, look, some hair.
Have you seen Schindler's List?
I have.
Right. So I think you'd probably...
I was more shocked by Schindler's List.
Yeah, that would be what I would think, that with... you'd probably, for a lot less money, be a lot more moved by watching that movie than going all the way over there. Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier to disbelieve it going there.
Right.
Than seeing a film, because you are basically shown a blown up bit of stone and said that 1.5 million people died here.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know any better, it would seem like the silliest thing anyone ever told you.
Right.
And I don't think it would be effective taking people there.
Yeah, plus, kids don't want to do anything that looks remotely like learning, but they would enjoy watching a film until it starts, of course, and then their shoulders would drop.
We watched Schindler's List in Year 9 at school.
Really?
Yeah, not in its entirety, but the emptying of the ghettos.
Right.
To get a feel for it.
Yes. Okay, thanks very much, Hadley.
Thanks.
Cheers, mate. Ta-ra. I used to do a talk show. Can you believe that? Roger's shaking his head. And I saw Schindler's List as a... I'm sort of drying up just thinking about it now. As a preview. And it finished about 15 minutes before I was supposed to be on the air, and I had to run, like about a half a mile from that movie theatre to get on the air, at which point I couldn't speak. I had to play just continuous music for 3 hours. I just couldn't do the talk show at all. I just had to cancel the show because I just couldn't do it. How can you do a comedy talk show after seeing Schindler's List? It's impossible. 8:17. LBC Travel with Will Gowing.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
Correct.
0845 6060 973. Here's Clapham. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Brian. About your MPs and your overspending.
Yeah, you're Brian.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. Been a long day. I'm a coach driver. You know me by another name, but what I'm about to tell you will upset my bosses. Basically, I take 40 to 50 people from various places in Essex and Hertfordshire up to the Houses of Parliament for dinner with the MP.
Who? Who do you take?
I take various people from their constituencies up to meet their MP and to have dinner with their MP.
So this is just ordinary members of the public?
Ordinary members of the public.
Right, okay, fancy a freebie.
The evening starts with a champagne reception.
Oh, lovely.
then a 5-course meal, followed by coffees and brandy, and the bar all night is free of charge.
Not to us, it ain't. We're paying for it.
I'm afraid so. But to make matters worse, the £500 or, well, £500 to £1,000 for the coach to take them to and from London is also paid by the MP.
Well, who are these people?
They are just general members of the public, or they are the MP's cronies, and they are just literally up there for a free night.
Well, can I get on this shindig?
You get to know your MP pretty well, and they go quite regularly.
Really?
Yeah.
And did you ever, I suppose as a driver, you get to sit outside and wait?
I have been in one.
What was it like?
It was lovely. Oh, the food was beautiful, but to be honest with you, what was going through my mind was, I'm paying for this.
Yeah.
As a taxpayer, we all pay for that.
And
I would put the price in of about £5,000 for the night.
And the surroundings that they're enjoying our largesse in, they're presumably very dowdy, workaday surroundings that they haven't spent very much money on?
No, not at all. The room that I went in was a private boardroom, which was leather-cladded chairs, leather-top tables, crystal glasses. It was absolutely beautiful, Nick.
Well, that kind of makes you sick. And how often do you do these trips?
Around about this time of year, quite frequently. And I believe, well, I don't know, but I believe that's because it comes to the end of the tax year, and obviously if they haven't used their budget,
right,
they need to use it rather rapidly, so they
yeah.
can bring people up to eat dinner.
Because if they don't use it, then the man with the money will say, well, if you didn't use it last year, then you won't need it next year.
Need it next year.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the bad news, Brian.
No problem.
Cheers, mate. It was a spy report from Clapham. Huh. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Well, actually, it does surprise me a little bit. I thought it was just MPs enjoying our generosity for themselves. They're actually spreading it about a little bit. Not to anyone I know. Or you, presumably. Has anybody actually been in there and enjoyed any of this personally? 0845 6060 973. I'm keen to find out what it's like. The only part of the place I've been to, it was on that excellent open weekend that they have in the autumn. It's called Open Key or Key Open, something like that, where they open up a lot of buildings that are normally verboten. You cannot go in, like the Foreign Office and, beautiful places like that. A lot of private residences as well, residences and clubs and, the things that the public can't normally get into. There's this excellent thing called Open Key Weekend, something like that. I usually go, and if I'm not working at the weekend. You can see some amazing places, but they did open the Houses of Parliament. Not all of it, just the oldest chamber, I suppose. The part that is the oldest part of the Houses of Parliament, which what you can see was built around, which is just basically a giant dark room. And then you get to go, I think it was underground, to Portcullis House. What are you eating? Stuffing his little face he is. Can't you eat before the show starts? Eating your way through this super show. Don't speak with your mouth full, it's rude. And you go to Portcullis House and, oh, good grief, the money that they've spent on that place, it's incredible. I know I often bang on about chairs, but you can tell how much an organisation is spending on a building by the chairs that they put in it. And they have they're spared, rather, no expense on the chairs. They're not any old chairs. I mean, they could get by with the $49.99 secretaries' chairs. In fact, there are two in the main committee room that you see on the TV. If somebody from government is answering impertinent questions from some committee or other, in fact, the Prime Minister of the day does this on a regular basis, then that's the picture that you will see. It looks like a modern, bright room, and everybody's sitting on green chairs. And they're all... Oh, blimey, I forgot the designer's name. Anyway, they're £1,500 each. What? That's right, £1,500 each, and there must be 100 in this room. And the only two chairs that are different are ordinary blue $49.99 typist chairs for the two women taking notes in the middle. Those are the only ones that don't get to sit on the nice £1,500 chairs. The secretaries. Can you believe that? I'm expecting the answer to that question is yes. Yes, you can believe it. Crawley. Hello, Ali.
Yeah, hello, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I just want to point quick things about global warming. Yeah? Starting with that, I think there's a proof. Yeah, the whole thing about the global warming, recycling, and the the zone. I don't know how they call it. You know what I mean? It's just a ball cocoa. Yeah.
It's a what? A ball of cocoa. Huh,
yeah.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah,
I could do with a ball of cocoa right now, as a matter of fact.
That's a North African saying.
Is it? Right.
Anyway, and something else, it's a proof that God exists and he's the manager. He's managing the things like he wants and making fool of the Mayor Livingston and the Dark Vader, how you call him. You know.
I don't think God needs to make a fool of Ken Livingston. I think he's quite competent in doing that himself. I've got to go, Ali, but leave us on God. It's an excellent place to leave. LBC 97.3. It's 8:30.
3. Yeah.
So Facebook and my FaceSpace book and Bebo. I don't even know what Bebo is. What's Bebo?
Like Facebook, but called something different.
Is it? Right, just getting on the on that little gravy train to fame and fortune and riches beyond your wildest dreams, beyond the dreams of avarice. Isn't Facebook? Isn't the guy behind Facebook like 12? And he's worth £82 trillion. He's got all the money that Bill Gates doesn't have. It's something like that, isn't it? Something really annoying like that. You know, when you get to it wasn't grand when I were a lad. It was rubbish. I didn't have any money. Now everyone's a trillionaire when they're 8. Very annoying. But apparently that thing, according to the nice man on the news, is coming to an end. And you know what? It's because it's just typing. They're not your friends. I've been saying it all along. It seems like you're wasting your time to me. I've got 2 sites on, sites that are in my name on Facebook or MySpace or one of those things. They're nothing to do with me, though. They've got my pictures all over them, and people want to be my friends, and people are poking me. If only they were doing it in real life. Why do they call it that? Couldn't they call it something else?
Like what?
Well, I don't know, something nicer. Poking. Yeah, prodding, yeah, or, waving me a cheery hi hello. Something like that. Not poking. It's rude. It's just not nice, apart from anything else.
Depends where you get poked, I suppose.
I suppose so, yeah. I've been saying this all along, and it's wearying being right about everything all the time, but, you know, what can I do? That you people who are spending, 8, 10, 12 hours a day on talking to your 10,000 friends on MyFace, it's just a complete waste of time. It really is. And people in decades hence are going to look back on these fads and think, what are these people? I mean, really, what were they doing? There's an entire world going on out there, a whole panoply of exciting life in full colour. In 3 dimensions. You remember 3 dimensions, don't you? And to be sitting there pouring your life into a screen on my FaceSpace. It's I'm kind of hoping that it's going the way of all things and dying a death, because there's so many better things to do. Isn't that right, Leonie?
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, hello, Nick. I'm a bit nervous because I haven't called before.
Oh, well, good for you to do that.
Yeah, but, you make me laugh.
Well, you've got to have a laugh, ain't you?
Especially if you work where I used to work.
Where's that?
Used to work at the House of Commons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I worked there for 20 years.
In what capacity?
I was something called a committee assistant, which meant that I looked after one of these select committees. So I was on the staff there.
Right.
But,
so what sort of thing did you do?
Well, I kind of organised things for this little group of members. on the
Things.
committee. I kind of organised their whatever they were going to do. I kind of organised it.
Right, so if they wanted to take a 5-star fact-finding mission to Sydney, Australia, for
Which they
instance...
frequently did.
Did they?
Yeah, honestly, the trips abroad, you would not believe what they cost. That's one of the things that I organised for them.
Well, let me ask you about this. Now,
Yeah,
so
go on.
you were the person that, excuse me, that called up the airlines and the hotels and so on.
Yeah.
Now, in your private capacity, you probably do like I do, and you try and get the absolute best deal that you can, and you shop
Sure.
around and you spend all day on the net seeing which airline to fly
Absolutely.
with, and you call up the hotels and ask them, is that their very best price, and so on.
Yep.
But in your capacity, spending our money on them, I bet that you just called the first airline and you got the rack rate, and you didn't quibble or ask for discounts or anything like that, and it cost an absolute bloomin' fortune.
Well, not only that, but there were certain specific requirements for members of Parliament going on one of these trips.
Okay.
Like, obviously, they have to travel first class. They have to have the best hotel. They have the red carpet, and money is absolutely no object.
And did this sort of stick in your throat every now and again?
Yeah, very much. Now, okay, you can say it was a bit hypocritical of me to work there. Because I got all kinds of privileges that you wouldn't believe.
Right.
But they were privileges which shouldn't have been available. They were available, so yeah, I accepted them. But to my mind, a lot of it was quite wrong, quite immoral.
Now, without because you've probably signed the Official Secrets Act, right?
Yeah.
Now, without giving any names or any indication as to what the committee was, was everybody pulling their chairs up to the trough, or were some people?
No. To be really fair, there are some very good, hard-working, honest members of Parliament, but on the other side, there are the ones who are just up for what they can get.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm not saying that they don't do their job, but they jolly well milk it, And the restaurants and bars, well. I couldn't count the number of bars there are there, which are open only to members.
Now, this is institutional food, isn't it? Is it? It would make us feel a bit better if they were actually being served something that looked and tasted like school dinners. Is it?
Absolutely not.
Not right.
It's really, really nice. And there are members of Parliament. There are also something which is classed as an officer of the House of Parliament.
What is that?
Right. That is somebody who's achieved a certain rank. They've probably got a degree, and they got there by simply their own endeavours.
Right.
So they work there, but they're known as officers, and they have more or less the same privileges as the members do. In other words, they can take advantage of the bars, the restaurants. They can go into certain places which the public are not allowed to go into. God knows how many of them there are that the public are paying for, that we're paying for.
And is drunkenness rife?
Well, now what can I've seen it.
Right.
I've certainly seen it.
Right, in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must stress that there are an awful lot of really good, really hard-working members of Parliament, but there's a fair number of ones that I wouldn't want to be seen with, quite honestly. Mind you, they wouldn't speak to me anyway.
No, of course not. No,
I'm not. I wasn't a high enough ranking.
Yeah, I should say so.
But I did work very hard.
And well, it's no wonder then that they cling to the I can't remember what the phrase is, but they cling to power with such vigour because it would be very disappointing to miss out on all these free treats.
You bet. I mean, I quite honestly, I miss working there, but
Really?
I'm retired now, and in fact, it's a bit like an officers' club, really outdated.
Right.
Really outdated. But there's another thing, the members' underground car park, which I actually had the privilege of using.
Really?
Totally
Where's
free.
that then?
Or it's underground, underneath the building.
Underneath the Houses of Parliament itself?
Underneath it, yeah.
Huh.
I don't know whether you remember, a really, really long time ago, the MP Airy Neve
Yeah.
coming out of the House of Commons car park was blown up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but it's quite big, and it's available to all members and staff who've worked there for a certain length of time, and it's totally free. Whether you're working there or not, you can go and park there when you're not working. If you just want to go out for the evening,
yes,
you can go and use it.
Of course, it's an excellent part of town to have a free car park in.
Yeah. So you know, all in all, you're quite right with what you say about it. It's an elitist place, and
some of the trips that you organise.
Yeah.
What sort of money are we talking about per person?
Hundreds of thousands. There is a ceiling, and I can't remember what it is, and it's probably changed anyway. But one trip could easily cost 50,000. And okay, there is a purpose. There's always an investigation into something going on, and they tie in the trip to that investigation. But I have heard at a committee meeting, which is in private, I have heard members say, "Oh, where are we going for our holidays this year?" And then, you know, I have to actually organise the thing, whether I agree with it or not. So,
and did you ever get to go on any of these trips?
Yeah. There's always one member of staff, quite often two members of staff, because there are 11 members of Parliament, and they have to go and fetch and carry their cases, and, you know, generally run around for them.
And they're all at the front of the plane enjoying champagne. And which part of the plane did you sit in?
Well, you were allowed to sit with them.
Oh, right.
Yeah. If you travelled with them, you could actually sit with them.
Organiser's privilege.
Yes.
There you go. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was good fun as well. And you know, I've worked with some really nice people.
Did they ever take any trips to places that weren't particularly, that you wouldn't take a holiday to?
Yeah, they did. I mean, they'd go to places. Well, you would go to Russia these days, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they did do that. But then they always stayed in the best hotels, and, you know, had the best service that they could possibly get. So that you can't really say that they had to suffer the way the rest of us do if we're travelling.
No, hot and cold running champagne, night and day.
A lot. You'd love it.
Yeah, I would. I'm thinking of running for office. Yeah. Leonie, that was excellent. Nice talking to you. Thanks very much.
Okay, nice to speak to you.
Cheers,
Bye.
0845 6060 973. So I was right all along. Isn't that shocking? Stop nodding your head. No, it isn't shocking. The situation that we find ourselves in is shocking. And you know why they pull them? They pull their chairs up to the trough like that? Hazard a wild stab in the dark.
Because they're not paying for it?
No.
Because they like the food?
No.
Because they've got nothing else to do?
No. The reason that they do it is because they can. In the same circumstance, we do it too. That's the awful part. Like, you can't really get bent out of shape too much about this, because you know in your hearts that if somebody came and said to you, "Oh, we should either pick up the phone and talk to the High Commission in Jamaica about their way of dealing with whatever, or we could up sticks and go there. We'll travel first class. We'll stay in a 5-star hotel. There'll be work for 1 or 2 days, but then there'll be some downtime for 5 or 6. All expenses paid. Don't worry about a thing. We'll pick you up from your home in a chauffeured limousine. Do you fancy going?" How many of us would say no? Of course not. It's because they can. We'd do it too. And until we can get run by robots, this is the situation that we will continue to find ourselves in. And it is the best the best system, or rather it's the worst system, apart from all of the others. 8:44. LBC Travel with Will Gowing.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
Everything is going extremely well.
0845 6060 973. Who's calling Surbiton? Hello, Paul.
Hello, Nick.
Paul.
Are you well?
Yes, very well, thanks.
Thank you. This caller talked about concentration camp.
Yes.
Now, we all know emotionally that was a horrible thing. But it's important historically to get it in perspective. Because, first of all, Churchill did not know the full extent of what was happening. No one did.
Well, we don't know that that's true or not.
Well, he didn't.
Well, we don't know that that's true or not. But anyway, let's agree to that it's undecided.
Nick, assume that he did.
Yeah.
Okay. Our motivation at that point, we were stretched to the limit to defeat Nazi Germany, and we were on the point of losing. What was the most important thing was to defeat a genocidal race, or to divert resources which would have taken vital resources away from defeating Nazi Germany. What was most important?
Well, I don't know. We could argue the toss about this all night long. We could say, well, it would only take, a couple of bombs to do the trick, and then they could go and concentrate on something else.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. That's the whole point. It's the whole point. It wouldn't have done that because they did not know where half these camps were. And
well, how do you know that? You keep saying these things, but how would you know that?
Churchill did not know where.
How did you know that?
Well, from his memoirs.
His memoirs? What, in his memoirs he said, I didn't know where they were?
No, he honestly said he did not know that. He knew that there was something going on, but he had... do you know who had a full inkling of what was going on? Russia. They knew exactly what was going on. And what did they do? Sod all.
Well, much the same as us.
Well, Nick, we were stretched to the limit to defeat Nazi Germany. We are absolutely pushed to the absolute hilt. What are we supposed to do? Divert resources to something which we may or may not have known what was going on?
Well, now we're back to where we started again. It's like we've done a loop.
Well, what do you think?
Did you actually call up to defend Churchill?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because your caller made a point that Churchill knew what was going on and didn't do anything about it. Well, my argument is he didn't know the full extent of what was going on, and B, even if he had done, it would have been very, very difficult to do anything about it.
Well, difficult. Okay, it's difficult, so we just don't bother. I don't really want to get into a discussion about what Churchill did and did not know, because neither you nor I have any idea what he did and didn't know.
Well, your caller asserted that he did know. That's the whole point of when I made the call.
Right. Okay.
Your caller did assert that he did know, or he said we did know what was going on. My assertion is that we didn't know.
Okay. Well, then let's agree to that you both have different opinions on what happened all those years ago, and there's no way forward in this argument.
It's important
really.
to get a different perspective, Nick, because otherwise we'll just go on thinking that we're the guilty party.
Well, we aren't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, we aren't. For what went on, we fought the Nazis. We fought them. We fought a genocidal race, and we fought them because we wanted to defeat genocide. So anyone that stands up and says, "Oh, you didn't do anything about mass genocide in the concentration camps, etc., is talking rubbish, because we did.
Well, we didn't.
Genocide.
Okay, we're not going to get anywhere with this, Paul. But thanks for calling. All right, 0845 6060 973. I don't want any more calls on genocide. All right, can we agree on that? Is that a yes? They're nodding on radio. Can you believe it? Streatham, Pandora.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Let's open
my
this box.
favourite presenter.
Oh, cheers, Pandora.
Before I come to my question, I'd like to know why you don't like Bran.
I don't like Bran.
No, you make me die laughing, you do.
It was an old sketch from Harry Enfield, when Harry Enfield and that funny woman, I can't remember her name, they were both playing the Wayne and Waynetta Slob.
Oh.
And he went out and bought a Cortina, and it was Bran. And she says, "But what do you want to buy that for? I don't like Bran." So it just stuck.
Lad, you are. Listen, Nick, I want your opinion on what they're doing to our fellow pensioners in closing all the post offices. What do you think about it?
Well, you'll have no one to talk to now, will you? Well, you miss them, really? I mean, post offices are horrible.
Well, I know they're horrible. Clive doesn't like them.
No.
But what about us poor old things that don't have computers and don't understand all this modern technology.
Well, that is a problem. Absolutely, there is a giant proportion of the people who live in this country that don't have computers, nor would they know how to switch one on if you presented one to
I
them.
wouldn't. I've got digital radios, but as regards a computer, I'm very interested in it, but my brain is dulled a bit now.
Well, it's not. I mean, that's what you just said is actually quite true. You do find it difficult to learn new technologies that you didn't grow up with.
Yes.
That's that's a well-established fact. But you're quite right. People who aren't on the internet are excluded from much of society these days, and that's a phenomenon that's only going to get worse. So how would it be that if they put whatever what is it that you need in a post office? What is it that you're going to miss?
I still collect my pension from the post office. My sister collects it for me.
Couldn't they just put it straight into your bank account? Do you have a bank account?
Yes, but I suppose you could pay it into Barclays Bank.
Without mentioning any brand names, Barclays, not NatWest, Barclays.
Well, I don't know. I'm in the Abbey myself.
Oh, right.
I mean, that's a building society. I prefer to go to...
so is it just that? Is it just picking up the pension at the post office then?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But you see...
So maybe you could pick it up at, I don't know, could they not give you that facility in a supermarket?
I did say last night, I heard it on LBC, that... the ones that were going, there's one at Balham going, but the Streatham, Tooting post office, it's got a shop as well.
Yeah.
A spa shop. So they said that they thought the ones with the shops were more likely to stay open, but in the local paper today, it said that that one was down for closure.
Well, you know what, but it seems that, and I was listening to Clive talking about this the other night, and he's absolutely right, it seems as though they haven't touched the inside of a post office since 1975. They are hideous.
Yeah.
So it would be much better, I think, to just take whatever people use in post offices the most, which would be collecting pensions and, stamps and so on, and maybe have a stand. In much the same way as they have cigarette stands in your local supermarket. Would that be a good idea?
Well, I suppose it would.
I mean, it would be less repellent inside, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, I've solved something.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Have a nice night, Pandora. Cheers, my dear. Ta-ra.
I adore you. You make me laugh.
Well, thanks very much. Cheers, ta-ra. 0845 6060 973. What a nice lady. Chertsey. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Nick.
Tony.
Hi there.
Yes.
That was very interesting. That was a very interesting call, I think, from the lady that worked at the House of Commons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, more reasons to join the revolution then, Nick?
She probably spoke out of turn, and men in black overalls will be bursting through her windows,
yes,
spraying machine gun fire around.
Yeah. yeah, that's right. Yeah. Do you think they really mind about details like that getting out?
I'm sure it irritates them that we know how luxurious their life is in there. Yes, I'm sure that they would much prefer that riffraff like us kept our noses out.
Yeah.
It's not our place.
That's right, yeah. Difficult to do anything about a huge system that we have running us, though, hey?
In what sense?
Well, you know it goes on, I know it goes on. You possibly, although my party wouldn't do anything like that.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, all right.
Well, the thing is, the people that we would complain to about it are the very people who have their hands in the till.
That's
so
right,
nothing will ever change. Every now and again there will be stories of outrage, as there are at the moment. We seem to be undergoing a fashion for stories about MPs' expenses and their glorious lifestyles. And we'll get all hot under the collar, as we will, every time this sort of thing comes around. And next week, the press will stop writing about it, and we'll all forget.
Yeah. Until somebody lobs a grenade.
Well, let's certainly hope that doesn't happen. A verbal grenade, perhaps, Tony.
Oh,
maybe that's what you meant, yeah. Thanks a lot, mate. I've got to go.
Okay.
This is LBC 97.3, 0845 6060 973.
And 3.
It's a good idea to get someone else's opinion.
It sure is, dear. 0845 6060 973. There was some statistics released recently about the dropout rate for degree courses, which is absolutely staggering. It's about the same rate as the dropout rate for fast jet fighter pilots in the RAF, which is also unbelievable. It's a little more expensive for them. But nearly a quarter of university students failed to complete their degree courses, it was claimed recently. That is incredible. A quarter! Despite an £800 million scheme to curb the dropout rate, it's remained virtually the same in the past 5 years. Critics blame the government's attempt to get more young people into higher education, which has encouraged thousands of weak students to flock towards inappropriate degrees. You know, when it were grand when I were a lad. Hardly anybody went to university when I went to uni, which didn't mean that the people that went to uni were particularly bright. I mean, look at me. But the rate at which people went to uni was microscopically small. I mean, I think it was in the low single digits. It was like 4%, something like that. Tiny. These days, everybody goes to university, and you'd have to ask the question why. And the answer may be that it makes the government look good. It makes them look as though their educational policies have reaped bounteous fruit. Well, they haven't. People are not brighter now than they used to be. Just because they go to university doesn't make you any less stupid than me. Or anybody else of my age. You know, people in the 60s, 70s and 80s weren't dopes just because they didn't go to university. They went and did other things, more fulfilling things. Things that would set them up for a better career than going and doing soot juggling to degree level, or whatever it is people study these days. Media studies. What are you going to do with that? Get in the radio. Don't do it. So this is why people are dropping out, is because they're not suitable for university in the first place. It's bloomin' obvious. I'll tell you what, I should be sucking up all of that free food and drink over at the House of Commons. I'll tell them what to do and where to go. The dropout rate is worse among those at former polytechnics and on part-time courses, with 44% failing to gain a qualification. The report also revealed that major disparities in the dropout rates between different subjects, with maths and computer science and engineering among the worst affected. That's kind of odd. I would have thought that all the sort of jokey, dopey subjects would have been among the worst. Oh, thanks, Alex. Lovely cup of tea. At least this one looks like a cup of tea, Raj, as opposed to that swill that you got me earlier on. Oh! That was done with venom. I can't believe it. I'm quite shocked. If only this was on camera, the nice ladies and gentlemen would see your true nature. Appalling. Really, it's two of you. You need to go to India and learn how to make tea. It is shocking. Or just go to the Dorchester, or just ask your mum. Anyway. Many students claim that they've been forced to quit because they lack basic numeracy skills, and so don't understand what they're being taught. Good grief. The committee also blames, this is a committee that's looked into this, they also blame the increasingly impersonal nature of universities for failing to keep their students interested. Oh, do me a favour. Keep their students interested? You're supposed to, after school, be self-motivating. Keep the students. What are they supposed to do? Play little games with them? That is pathetic. Many students complain of having gone through their entire degree with no tutor knowing who they are. Well, yeah, so? The tutors aren't remotely interested in you. You come, you go, next. It's just a production line for them. But, I'm mystified by this. So the implication is that you have to be stroked all the way through university, someone cooing over you like you're their pet. Oh, haven't you done well? Just get on with it. It's pathetic. The MPs also point out that because universities receive premiums for every student they recruit from non-traditional backgrounds, many are enrolling youngsters simply to meet targets instead of tackling the high dropout rates. That's right. That makes sense. Targets, government targets, once again, having the entirely the opposite effect to that which was intended, or rather stated. Edward Lee, Tory chairman of the committee, said, "It's 5 years on from our last report on student retention, but the percentage of students dropping out from their original universities has not budged. This despite some £800 million being paid to universities over the same period to help retain students." This is why our taxes keep going up and you don't see anything from it. We might as well set fire to our money. Many more students are being recruited from backgrounds and schools where university was not previously thought to be an option. But these are the very students more likely to leave early. Of course they are. Not everyone is mentally geared up for further education. Not everyone would benefit from further education. I mean, there's a relatively small number of jobs that would benefit from getting a degree. Am I right? Most jobs doing experience of the actual job is key. And this business right here, show business, is like no business I know, because if you want to be in this business of show, then just do it. Don't do media studies or any other guff that people will put you into just in order to meet targets. Sally, the General Secretary of the University and College Union, said just getting them through the doors does not represent success. Correct amundo. I think that's the first time I've ever said correct amundo on the radio. How embarrassing. Greenford. Hello, Edward.
Hello, Nick.
Edward.
I'd just like to point out to you and all your good listeners, I'm 78 years old and I use the post office quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It's about half a mile away from me. I can just get down and get back.
Yeah.
It's not just drawing a pension and buying stamps. Every letter I post, I have to have measured and weighed. And if I stick an ordinary stamp on it by myself and think what it costs and post it, whoever receives it gets fined.
Yeah, that's right.
And the same with a parcel. Every parcel I post, I have to put it over the counter, have it weighed. They want to know where it wants to go, first class, letter, post, parcel, or whatever. And I pay the dues.
Well, they're going to have to figure out... I mean, if they are going to close post offices, they're surely not going to stop people from posting letters and parcels. They're going to have to...
Where are they going to post them, Nick?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to...
taking them to the House of Commons and giving them all to them. I tell you what, Nick, I've got an alternative to it.
Okay.
Stop all this rubbish.
Go on then.
Why not sack all the MPs, close the House of Commons down, go and pick out 600 ordinary people off the streets at random, sling all of them out the House of Lords, put that 600 people in the House of Lords, pay them £150,000 a year, and let them govern the country. And if they don't do it right, sack them. And then
I've said something along these lines on the air myself, principally because my dad said this to me. Yeah. And his notion was more or less exactly what you just said, apart from they should all be on a 6-month rota. You have your 6 months, and you decide by committee, and then you'll get slung out, and a new 600 people come in and make their mind up.
That's right. And they should be on a contract. And if they don't fulfil the contract, like the French used to do, or the Romans, they should choose to decimate them. Kill one in every 10 of them.
Right. Well, as long as you don't say anything controversial, Edward, that's excellent.
Anyway, can I just say one more thing, Nick?
Yeah, go on.
You've got an excellent programme, and you run it very well.
But?
I usually listen to a chap who comes on after you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I think he was reared by a maiden aunt who kept cats. He's always sucking his gums, and he don't know whether he's coming or going, but never mind that. The other lot on the other side...
Oh, well, we don't speak about them.
No, well...
They are literally unspeakable.
I'm an ex-soldier, Nick, and I would like to shoot a lot
Shoot a lot of them, yeah, quite right, too.
Anyway, lovely programme, Nick.
Thanks, Edward. Cheers,
I'll keep on listening, if I may.
All right, yeah, you do
and
that.
If anything interesting is said, I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, write it down on a piece of paper. Pop it in the post. Cheers, mate. Ta-ra. 0845 6060 973. I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of Edward. It's 9:15. LBC Travel with Will Gowing.
1.3. Call Nick Abbott. 0845 6060 973.
Correct. Sky News presenter Martin Popplewell stands in for James Hartigan on Drive tomorrow from 4 o'clock, and Martin and Petrie are going to be speaking to Joe Jackson, from whom we have not heard very much in a good long while. He had Steppin' Out. It was an absolute classic, sort of like jazz tinged to pop, great. And I forget. It was the Steppin' Out album, and he was in there with his white and black shoes. I remember it. I've got a picture of it in my mind. Anyway, he's kicking off a world tour, not a moment too soon, and he'll be on the Drive Time show tomorrow from 4 o'clock. Chigwell now, Eduardo.
I've noticed that you've become the darling of the over-70s brigade tonight.
Yes.
You'll be doing voiceovers for Saga next.
And Sonatogen.
You know you've cracked it.
Yeah.
Just on, just briefly before I move on to the internet.
Just before you move on to whatever it is that you want to move on to briefly, before you move on to the internet, are we on speakerphone?
No.
Oh, right.
I'm in the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Let me go into the hall. In here. This is where there's carpet.
Into the lounge. Yes.
No, the telly's on it. Now, the House of Commons and their food and wine.
Right.
Absolutely, the most marvellous meal I ever had was in the House of Commons.
Really?
Venison. Courtesy of Ian Duncan Smith, and there was no shortage of fine wines to select when we wandered into the reception area.
Huh.
Absolutely lovely place. Didn't cost a cent.
Oh, how did you get into there then?
I don't know, some young conservative type thing trying to recruit me. I spent the whole night just being moronic.
I wish they'd try and recruit me.
No, you know, these people are horrible.
Well, I don't care. Anything for a free dinner.
I'm always up for a free meal. If there's fine dining and it's free, I'm the first in the queue. And I must say that it was one of the nicest places I've ever been to.
Right.
Anyway, next point. You know, you mentioned...
So which, let me investigate, let me investigate this further and see if we can get a vivid image of what it is that went on. So they were trying to recruit you to the Conservative Party.
One of these Rotarian things, you know, where you get young up-and-comers and, like, they try and rope anyone in the business community in that's vaguely Aryan, and they just want, you know, as many people as they can.
Yes.
Keep the flag flying.
Right.
And they said, why don't you come down, bring your wife, and come down for a dinner at the House of Commons with the Right Honourable Ian Duncan Smith.
Ah, what a delight, you thought.
Oh, I thought, well, you know, it'd be nice, because I always wanted to... It's nice when you can go somewhere and you don't have to queue, and you can be whisked through.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that was really all...
Plus, I mean, to be honest, it is one of, if not the, best building in London. I mean, the place is magnificent from the outside. I've got no idea, apart from that big old hall, the name of which I can't remember now, which is almost completely featureless inside. I've got no idea what the actual Houses of Parliament look like inside.
Fantastic. It's like the V&A without the ropes.
Really?
And you can just amble about, and we were ambling into these rooms for drinks, and then out on terraces for drinks, and then into another room for dinner, which had a view over the river.
Well, you know what? Whatever it may or may not look like inside, and I'll take your word for it that it is fabulous, the view has got to be one of the best in the world.
It's a lovely building. And I think, you know, being an MP, I mean, I wasn't too keen about it for sort of 65 grand a year. I thought that's not a lot of money for a lot of press, you know?
Yeah. You're
in the firing line. But when all the other bits came out, like the massive expenses, and I could get Mrs. Eduardo to file her nails for 150 grand a year,
yes,
which would save on the shopping bills and everything, and the other gem of getting a flat half an hour away, paid for.
Yeah, isn't that great? I might come to that in a minute.
$500,000, that must be like $500,000 all in for the year.
It's significantly more than the top line figure, yes. They're claiming 60 grand and claiming poverty while they're saying it, but that's not the half of it. It's not even the third of it.
You couldn't even live half on that lifestyle with 60 grand, you know?
No.
And, you know, it's easier to get into the House of Commons than it would be into an exclusive gentleman's club. I mean, even the officer's job sounds good, you know, because you get all the perks without being
in the press all the time.
photographed.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You know, who wants to be... The MEP is probably the best one, because nobody knows who or is an MEP or what they do.
And I might get to, if we have time, I might do MEP's expenses as well, because if we think that that our local lot are bad, then MEPs are virtually world class.
It's a proper racket. I mean,
yeah, it is. That's right. It is. It's a racket. Yeah.
I have to go, look, they get that sort of money for nothing. I had to go out to a house today, which was a 3-bedroom house, which had 7 people in it, shoes everywhere. The kitchen hadn't been cleaned for, like, God knows how long. It was an absolute pigsty, and all of that for $4,500. And I've got to go back to show people it.
Oh, you're an estate agent?
I prefer the term property consultant.
Right, you can prefer what you like, mate. You're an estate agent. Oh, let me ask you this then. How's business?
We've had a pickup. We've had a little bit of a pickup.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. It's just the last 2 weeks. Since then, it's been awful. The last 2 weeks, we've seen a little bit of activity, and we're all sort of like looking at online Gucci again. Getting
Now, 2 weeks does not a pickup make. That just might be coincidental.
It goes in cycles, Nick. What happens is you get like 3 or 4 months where it's flat, and then all of a sudden, for a month or 6 weeks, it'll go mental, and you can sell anything, and then it all flattens down again when people think, "Ooh, the market's rising. Let me put my property on the market, 50, 100,000 pounds net worth." So we've got to allow for catch-up all the time.
Right. It's interesting that the disparity in opinion continues, with one newspaper saying the things have never been so bad, and, curiously, the Express, day after day, sticking it on their front page, saying prices are rocketing up through the roof.
It has a massive bearing on what actually happens. Because people sit on the train and they read, "Oh, it's never been so bad," and then you get calls saying, "I'd like to take my property off the market," or "I'm pulling out of this."
Yeah.
And then, you know, the Daily Mail does something saying that, you know, "Sell now, it's never been so good." And, you know, we're deluged. So, no matter what anyone says, you know, it's just really some journalist has the power to upset me or make me a very happy man.
Yes, and it is actually one journalist, because journalists do tend to run in a pack, and if a journalist sees a story that says we're doomed, then another one will write the same story, and then another one will write that story, and then suddenly you've got a cascade of stories that were all caused by one person. It's the avalanche theory.
I'd welcome it anyway. I'd welcome a doom. A nice big drop. 20 or 30... Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because then, you know, then everything will be cheap to buy again. And then it will rise, won't it? We need a good... It's like, we're like a really big... The UK property market's like a big fat person. It needs to go on one of these TV programmes for a month where they just have colonic irrigations and cabbage soup.
And ex-army people shout at them.
Yeah, it needs that so it gets back into shape again, you know? Wouldn't make any much difference to my commissions. It just means we could pick up cheap properties again, you know?
Well, isn't that the truth? That that somebody accepting 10% less on their house doesn't really affect your commission that much, because 10% of 3% ain't that much.
Doesn't bother me. I wish I could get 3%. I'd be laughing. I don't have to do half the work that I do.
And that's, I would guess, almost nothing at all.
No, I went out twice today. The only problem is I lose my parking space, so I don't really like to go out that often.
It must have been lovely being in the Houses of Parliament, being surrounded by people who are respected even less by the general public than estate agents are.
It's like a busman's holiday.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can only dream. Me and, most of the people who are listening to this can only dream of being invited to the Houses of Parliament for a free slap-up meal. But you've painted a nice picture of it for us.
One of the perks of being an estate agent.
Yes. And what price would you put on the Houses of Parliament if you were to go to market today?
It needs a bit of updating.
It does, yeah. It's a fixer-upper, yeah, you're right. Thanks, Eduardo.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate. Ta-ra. 0845 6060 973. Great potential, though. Benefits from an outside space. And parking for 300 cars. Islington. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
I spoke to you before. I think I actually owe you an apology.
Okay.
Because we spoke about drugs in the music industry.
Oh, yeah.
And you were just saying to me, well, come on, all the great music's been written on drugs. And I quoted you, actually, the great turkey of the record industry, which is Tusk by Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Which was the most expensive double album ever made.
That's right.
Which almost crushed Warner Brothers. So I thought that really blew things out the water. But can I just say my background is founder member of Secret Affair, a mod band from 1979-1980.
Right. And
at that time, we did Top the Pops about 8 to 10 times. We were playing the Marquee Club, and before we went on to the Rainbow Theatre and Hampstead level, we actually foolishly ended up distributing for a short period of time through a roadie 100 blues pills because we were a mod group. And the place went nuts. If I took one of those pills today, I'd be on my back for a week in hospital.
Well, yeah.
But can I just have a plug, please? It's September 13th. I'm playing the Astoria. We're back after 30 years.
Huh.
But
some bands they keep on rolling.
Well, do you know why? I just want to go out and play great electric guitar, and people turn up. We do better business now than almost we ever did.
Is there something about being on stage and playing that is itself like a drug, that is kind of hard to give up?
It's, well, I hate to say this, the truth of the matter is, you're playing electric guitar and 1,000 people come out and want to see you play. It's nothing about the money, and you get out and play with some great musicians. It's a fantastic, unbelievable feeling. Because the best thing that ever happened to me was I used to sneak into the Rainbow Theatre and the Marquee Club when I was 13, 14 to see people like David Bowie.
Right.
When I sold out with Secret Affair the Rainbow Theatre when I was 19 years old, it blows your mind.
But were you wearing a one-legged jumpsuit?
Well, no, I was actually just wearing a mod suit and handing out blues pills.
Right.
But, no, it's an amazing feeling. If you idolise someone like Pete Townsend and you end up playing the Rainbow Theatre and you go out there...
Well, yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. Dave, better. I've got to go. Best of luck with the gig, all right?
OK.
This is LBC. LBC, 97.3 FM. It's 9:30.
3.
Walkie talkie.
Yes, use that number if you've gone to university and you're one of the quarter of the people who've done that and then dropped out before you got your degree, because I'd like to sort of get a handle on what is going on here, because there's an enormous amount of money that's been wasted on this, and it doesn't seem to make any sense. We're sort of shoehorning people into university when they seem to be ill-suited for it, and it's almost as though they're being dragged kicking and screaming. They don't appear to want to go. And it's costing us £1 billion. It's, when you fix up a house or, you do some work on your house, you find out that everything costs £1,000. You want, it doesn't matter what it is, it costs £1,000. But with government screw-ups, it's as though it doesn't matter what it is, it costs £1 billion. It's £1 billion price tag seems to come with every mistake they make. Isn't that extraordinary? No wonder that we seem to be on our uppers in this country, despite pulling in record amounts of tax. It is about £1 billion a day they charge us in tax in this country, except for just lately, I think it's been double that. They've just had a windfall that they couldn't have hoped for in their wildest dreams. Something like £2 billion a day just lately. Isn't that extraordinary? And still we haven't got any money, because they're just throwing it away on stuff like this. Most of it, you'd have to say, looks as though they're spending the money to make themselves look good, to make their policies appear as though they're being successful. Shoehorning people into university makes it look as though their education policies are a giant success. But if a quarter of them are failing, or just dropping out, then it's not a success at all. It's an enormous amount of wasted money. So if anybody has gone to university and dropped out, then I'd like to have a chat and see what the actual situation is. 0845 6060 973. And we were talking earlier about the MPs' expenses. Well, there's two more stories about this. There seems to have been a rash of them lately in the press. One is about the amount of money that they spend on so-called second homes. And the other is about Euro MPs. I'll do the local one first, because the amount of money that Euro MPs get through beats the almost amateurish nature of profligacy of our local yokels in the Houses of Parliament. Almost £400,000 of public money funds second homes last year. The MPs are entitled to housing payments of 22 grand, the same as MPs with seats hundreds of miles away in Scotland. I think I've started halfway through this story. Hang on a minute. See other side for beginning. Here it is. Members of Parliament who represent constituencies less than an hour's commuting distance from Westminster are claiming 20 grand of our money a year to fund overnight homes in central London. How many people work in London that don't have to commute an hour? I mean, almost nobody, right? Alex has got his hand up in the air. You'd have to be living in zone 1 or 2 to be faced with a commute of less than an hour. I mean, if you lived in Tufnell Park, it can quite reasonably take you an hour to get into town, can't it? Door to door. And so if you lived, I mean, imagine this, if you lived in Tufnell Park as an MP, you would claim £20,000 of taxpayers' money for a halfway house between Tufnell Park and the Houses of Parliament. Isn't that incredible? They're actually doing that. The latest expenses dodge by MPs has caused outrage among senior politicians who want colleagues who live within commuting distance of Parliament to be barred from claiming the cash. A committee of MPs set up by Michael Martin, the Speaker, who himself is under investigation for this air miles thing. So isn't that curious, that a committee of MPs who's led by Michael Martin to review Commons expenses is actually under review for his use of Commons expenses? He is considering whether London's MPs should be banned from claiming housing allowances that were created when late-night sittings were the norm. Last night, Martin was himself facing allegations that he'd breached MPs' guidelines using air miles gained on official business to pay for flights for his family. 24 MPs with seats in Greater London claimed £400,000 of our money to fund second homes last year. I mean, if you think about that, that is just absolute. I mean, the cheek of it is extraordinary. If you lived within an hour's drive, say, of where you worked, in real life, would you buy a flat halfway between, just so that you could break up your journey? Of course
Why don't they
not.
just give them Oyster cards and send them on their way?
Yeah, pat them on their little heads and boot them up the bottom. Two Labour MPs with neighbouring constituencies in West London have claimed more than 175 grand in allowances since 2002. They're married. So it's double the fun. Tony Wright, Labour chairman of the Commons Public Administration Committee, has written to the Commons Estimates Committee, all of these committees, which is in charge of the review, asking it to examine if such allowances are justified. Well, I'll tell you, no. They aren't. There you go. I've just saved you 100 grand in examination fees. And a trip to New Zealand to see how they deal with this issue. People who commute will find it very difficult to understand why people who live within commuting distance need separate houses. I mean, I'm just staggered. Among the highest claimants are the Keens, who share a family home in Brentford, which has frequent train services to Waterloo, taking half an hour. In 2002, the couple bought a £500,000 flat, 15-minute walk from Westminster. Both were unavailable for comment. Huh. Andrew Rossendale, Tory MP for Romford in Essex, claimed £22,000 last year, even though the train from Romford to Liverpool Street takes less than 30 minutes. He was also unavailable for comment. Joan Ryan, Labour MP for Enfield North, has a home in her constituency, in Enfield. Last year, she opted to claim £21,000 in housing allowance for a flat nearer Parliament in Kennington. Her comment was that commuting can be absolutely awful. Ah, poor dear, welcome to our world. It's just staggering, isn't it? Martin, the Speaker, is alleged to have used... I'll get onto him in a minute. So there's that. So amazingly enough, they're buying second homes, which, of course, will go up in value, and when they sell them, they will reap the profits. Unless I'm wrong about that. I mean, it's not going to go back in the public purse, is it? Any profits they make on houses bought with our money, they're going to get. Isn't that true? Richmond, Alan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, that whole thing, that committee you were talking about, being chaired by somebody who was being investigated, that's like getting busted as a drug dealer and being tried and judged by a pimp or something, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, seriously.
Maybe.
But that whole housing thing, it actually gets worse.
Go on.
Because I don't know if you just... Well, it was in the papers just recently. I thought it was actually 30,000, not 20,000. But that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Not only do they reap the profits as and when, and obviously when they do sell them, half of them are also renting them out and keeping the rent money.
Yes,
so
that is also true.
Are we buying them properties? We're buying them not just second homes, we're buying them income-generating rental properties. Yeah. And I mean, that is just... I'm sorry, that's outrageous.
That is taking the mick, really, isn't it?
It's worse than criminal. if we would... Right, I tell you what, if you went through all the sort of dramas as regards our government losing all this vital information and all the stabbings and all the corruption on the politics and the cameras, you just put all that on a program but didn't mention the country, you'd think you were either talking about some weird dictatorship country or a book like 1994 or something.
Yeah.
You would not believe you were talking about England.
Like some sort of comical South American dictatorship, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, every other day I get emails from friends in America because they're hearing... The latest one was obviously the $50 a day, as they were talking about going into town with 4x4s.
Right.
And they can't actually believe, A, that we even have to pay to go into our own city.
Well, of course, if an American brought their car over here and filled up at a British garage, they'd pass out, and not from the vapours, from the bill.
I already did that. I was running a couple of them round, and they nearly died when they went out and bought a pack of cigarettes and were paying like $11, $12 a pack.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's nothing. My car in America that you've got, how much would it cost you to gas up from like empty to full? And he's like, well, about $40. And I said, well, right, I just had a quarter of a tank, and because you guys want to go to Windsor, I filled the tank up. It cost me $280. And they, you know, I'm sorry, $100 a barrel.
Yeah. They think you must have filled up a boat.
What they don't understand is, I keep going on about, well, it's $100 a barrel, and they say, well, it is in America as well. So
that's true.
If it's $100 a barrel in America, and it's $100 a barrel in England, who the hell's getting all the money you're putting in your tank?
Well, that's, him.
The one from the dark side.
That's right, yeah. He is your father.
No, I don't think so. I'm adopted. In fact, I think, no. Yeah, I won't even go there.
Okay. He's backing off. Thanks very much, Alan. Cheers, mate.
Bye.
It's all right. 0845 6060 973. That is quite shocking, isn't it? Everything that he just said is shocking. That's the giant detail that I missed out. Some of these second homes that they're buying, with our money, they're renting out to other people, so they're accruing the increase in the principal, the increase in the value of the home that they've bought. But they're also getting regular income from renting it out to someone we don't know. And we're paying for it. Are we HAPPY? You bet your life we are. 9:44. LBC Travel with Will Gowing. Thanks. Nick Ferrari, by the way, will be discussing should we care about extraordinary rendition, the role of DNA in bringing Steve Wright to justice. Would increasing the cost of alcohol in supermarkets really help our nation's drink problems? And he couldn't make this up. We meet the lady who was dumped for being thin. And it's happy birthday to Brucey. That's with Nick, as he tackles the topics of the day, weekdays from 7 a.m. on LBC, where the speaker, Michael Martin, was talked about just a moment ago, and this is what he's facing at the moment. Common Speaker is facing a campaign to force him out of his job after it emerged that he used air miles earned on official business to give his family plane tickets. He sent 7 relatives on business-class trips from Glasgow to London. Common sources confirmed that MPs are advised not to use air miles clocked up on taxpayer-funded travel for personal gain. Former anti-sleaze MP Martin Bell said, who is heading a parliamentary inquiry into MPs' expenses, was damaging trust in politics and should quit. Actually, I've got that slightly wrong. Martin Bell isn't heading a parliamentary inquiry into MPs' expenses. Actually, he should be. Martin Bell, he's the guy in the white suit, right? He should be heading this inquiry into... I mean, he's one of the few people that you actually trust. Partly because he's been on TV and he wears a white suit. You know, any guy in a white suit, it's stuck in there mentally, isn't it? The guy in the black hat in cowboy films was the baddie, and the guy in the white hat was the goodie. If he was riding a white horse at the time, he was virtually like a saint riding among us. But it's not Martin Bell that's going to be heading this committee. It's Michael Martin, the chap who has been accused of using his air miles to ferry his family around in luxury at essentially our expense. That man is heading a parliamentary inquiry into MPs' expenses. That's bizarre. Removing a speaker who doesn't want to relinquish a post is almost impossible. But Martin Bell told the Daily Mail that he plans to find a high-profile candidate to stand against Mr. Martin at the next election. So that's that. The details of it are that Mr. Martin has come under fire for his own expenses. During his time in office, he spent nearly £50,000 on air travel and more than 20 grand on lawyers to defend him against negative newspaper stories. Right, so that's not his money, that's ours, to defend him. If he wanted to defend himself, do you think he'd spend his money? His wife Mary has also claimed over 4 grand of our money to pay for taxis to take her shopping. And yesterday it emerged that Mr. Martin, who earns £137,000 a year, has used air miles earned on official business to fund business-class travel for his son, daughter and grandchildren. His office did not dispute claims that the return flights involved were worth a total of £3,090. In all, Mr. Martin apparently claimed £10,500 in parliamentary allowances to cover air travel on official business last year, much of it for journeys with his wife between Westminster and their Scottish home. Sources said he'd amassed hundreds of thousands of air miles, and he cashed in 54,000 of them for a New Year trip from Scotland to London for his grown-up children and their families. He's understood to maintain that the use of the air miles was justified by exceptional circumstances, in which he wanted his family to join him in London over New Year. Right. It's nice work if you could get it. And no wonder they cling to power so like limpet-like, and do anything in their power to maintain their position in that house.
I should have used my politics degree to better use and become an MP.
What the hell are you doing wasting your time in show business for?
I've got no idea.
Kentish Town. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Nick.
Pat.
I think I'm going to stop paying tax.
Well, yeah, it does cross your mind.
Yeah. I was ringing up about, you're talking about students and how many people go into uni
yes.
These days. I don't know how old like, back in my day, it was quite normal for people to, you either took a gap year in between the sixth form and then, you went off around the world in between sixth form and your degree, or when you finished your degree, you'd go off travelling around the world or go to Thailand and take mind-altering drugs, dancing on the beach for ages, or get drunk in Australia. And I remember, loads and loads of people were doing this. And if you think nowadays, they want you to go to uni so that when you come out of uni, you can't afford to go away travelling, and you're immediately part of the system with a 30 grand debt that's going to take you years to pay off. Therefore, you're a good citizen. And
what, you mean they're shoehorning people into universities so they have less fun? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but they can't. But they might have fun while they're in uni, but they're going to pay for it. They're not going to be able to go off travelling, which was the norm in my day. Everyone went off. You either went to a kibbutz or wherever people went away. But
how old are you?
I'm 40.
Right, because I was among the last batch who went through university for free.
How old are you?
47.
Oh, right, okay. No, because I would have got... I had a place at uni, but I didn't go. I took a year off, and that was like 22 years ago, but I never went back. But yeah, I would have got a grant, and they also paid your housing benefit and everything during the summer holidays. So it was quite a good deal. You could sort of... You know, even during the summer, you didn't have to get a summer job. You could...
No, summer job? What's that?
Loads about... Yeah, but that's... I know you like a conspiracy theory, but it's not really a conspiracy, because I think that's what they're trying to do. Stop people going out of the country and spending their money or not contributing to, you know, society. They'd rather keep you in debt and... you know, from day one, as soon as you finish a degree, you've got to get a job because you've got to start paying your student loan back. Well, they say that you don't have to start paying it until you get a job. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Above, you have to be earning above a certain amount. It might be 15 grand a year,
Right.
something like that.
Okay. Well, that's my theory anyway.
Well, it's an interesting one. It's a little bit out there.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
But thanks for that, Pat.
No,
Cheers.
right. Cheers, mate. Bye.
0845 6060 973. There might be a scintilla of truth in you know, the best way to keep people down is to saddle them with debt. So although they're perpetually telling us to you know, rein in our spending, the best way to keep us, you know, quiet and morose and easily handleable is to make us depressed about how much money we owe. Just a thought. Euro MP expenses. Let's do the MP's troughs all in one show, and then I can throw all of this out and we need never discuss it again. A secret European Parliament report has uncovered extensive, widespread and criminal abuse by, that's a quote, by Euro MPs of staff allowances worth more than £100 million a year. Senior Euro MPs and European Union officials have tried to hush up an internal audit that found severe problems and endemic misuse of funds worth at least £100 million, or more than £125,000 for each Euro MP. I mean, in what job can you essentially nick 125 grand and maintain your position? Name me one. There isn't one. It doesn't exist. Such is the extent of the abuse found in a sample group of 167 Euro MPs that terrified parliamentary authorities have shrouded the report in secrecy and security. The Secretary-General of the European Assembly was asked late Monday night to take measures to ensure that there was no collateral damage from the report. In other words, that people like you and me would know about it. We want to reform, but we cannot make this report available to the public, it said. If we want people to vote in the European elections next year. Isn't that staggering? Only Euro MPs on the Parliament's Budget Control Committee are allowed to see the report. To do so, they must apply to enter a secret room. I'm not making this up. Protected by biometric locks and security guards. That's like fingerprint and eye scanner stuff, right? It's James Bond style. They may not take notes. They must sign a confidentiality agreement. Last night, after an emergency meeting of senior officials, a spokesman for the Parliament denied a cover-up. He said the document is not secret, it's confidential. It can be read by Euro MPs on the Budget Control Committee in the secret room. That's not the same as a secret document no one can read. So you can read it, but you can't take notes, and you must promise not to say anything about it. And you can only read it in a secret room. Yeah, that's not secret at all. Not even close. Staggering. Oh, hey, Raj, it's come to your part of the show, the part that you look forward to the most.
Exactly, I do, actually.
What have we... what, the end, you mean?
Yeah.
What have we talked about tonight, then, eh?
We talked about Student Union's Freshers' Weeks.
Yeah.
Because all they do is drink, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
MP's food and drink.
Yeah.
Secret reports.
Yes.
Discount
Booze.
food.
Yes.
Grown men baying. Expenses. Circling the bread.
Circling the what?
The bread.
The bread?
Because after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, that's what old...
yes, the discount bread, yeah.
Yeah, but you just give them a little nudge, don't you?
Must go faster.
The Churchill Room.
Yes.
Terminator TV programme, which apparently starts tonight.
Affirmative.
Students drinking.
Yes.
Bricks and carrier bags. Bullingdon Club.
Oh, not again. You're rubbish at this. LBC.
Our first property completes this year, and we're expecting to gain approximately £50,000